And so for the most part, there was only the basics were taught to people, because once you go beyond the basics and you go to an advanced or a mastery level, then you cease to need a teacher, in essence. You don't need to be under somebody's guidance. You actually need to go out into the world, out into the field of life, and have life be your teacher, and life's experiences give you the lessons. And you may still, refer back to your teachers for guidance or, for consultation from here and there. You need to take that with a grain of salt, because you realize that everyone is on their path and they have their agenda for their life and where they're going. And even if it comes under the guise of this is for the good of the all, right? Really, in essence, what it comes down to is you realize that you are part of the all, and for you to be able to be of service and contribute to the masses, if that's your goal, you need to be sorted out and in a position where you have no internal conflict or disturbances going on, unless you choose them to be there to induce growth for yourself. And so the advanced stuff is harder to find, because it's not even that you're learning new stuff, essentially. All you're doing is you're learning to apply the basic principles in a multitude of variant ways and in combinations with other things. And that gives you that advanced sort of level stuff. But the question came up in the feed a few minutes ago, because I posted up a picture of this old library. I think it was a Tibetan library, and they have these huge libraries, shelves stacked way to the ceiling, like 2-3 stories ceiling. And they don't have books like we have them. They have these, they're almost like these huge planks, and they have all the papyrus lined up, and then they have another one stacked on top, and it's like this block of a book, and you take the plank off and then you read it, and then you put it back, and then it goes back on the shelf, sort of thing. And it doesn't leave the library. And one of the questions was, what's in these books? What's in there? Is it all about religion? Is it all... And I'm sure it's a library like any other, where there's all sorts of things in there, but I think the main focus in these monasteries, these temples, are about how to master the internal processes of what's going on inside the body and the mind on subtler and subtler levels, right down to an energetic level. Hence, energetic arts. We're learning to really be masterful at that subtle level. Because what you'll find is that once you've been practicing for a little while, and you get a bit of a handle on things, is you're going to start hitting walls, you're going to start hitting ceilings, you're going to start finding out there's dead ends here and there. And when you come to the limit of a threshold of a boundary containment, you realize that there's more, obviously, and you need to go to the next boundary containment. It's like these circles ever expanding or coming ever in, narrowing, whichever way you look at it. There's always another layer, and within the layer there's all these modules and components that you can learn and master and practice and apply and use. I'm sure there's all sorts of, on a physical layer, information on how to make your life better on a physical layer, just like the major self-help industry is. Make extra money, have good relationships, live a healthier lifestyle. Health, wealth, wisdom, basically. This is how you learn a new skill, and how you master a new skill, how you start a new business, apply it to a business. These are all, although they're quite complex, and you can scale right up to multinational entities like a Tesla, for example, and you can be building rockets and electric vehicles that are in essence going to change the world completely in the way how we live, just as computers did back in the 70s and 80s with Microsoft and Apple. There is a limit to that in what can be done in the moment of now, right? There's certain boundaries, there's certain rules of physics that need to apply. But when you start going internally and you start becoming more subtle about things, and if we look at the light spectrum as an example, in between you've got this visible light spectrum where apparently everything in our known physical reality happens, and then outside of that, things become imperceptible, right? Although these other light ray frequencies interact with the visible light, if you're just in the visible light spectrum in that narrow corridor of third dimensional reality, then these other levels of life are imperceptible. And so this information that's in these texts, I'm imagining, because I haven't read them myself, all I've done is track down research that points towards what may or may not be in them, is that you're dealing with understanding, becoming aware of, perceiving, and utilizing and applying what's available in these subtle spectrums that really, for the most part, are imperceptible or invisible. At first, it doesn't really sound that useful, but because it sounds so abstract as well. So, well, what do I do with all that? And so what we're seeing play out today in our society with all these restrictions and these limits, and obviously changes in the way we live and how the future's rolling out and all that sort of thing, is that someone or a group of people or many people, whether connected or not, using their knowledge of these subtle levels and scales to reshape reality. And when you reshape reality in the present or in the past, you're shaping the future, right? It's hard to talk about this because you don't want to reveal too much, because you don't want the wrong information getting into the wrong hands and being used for the wrong purposes, which is all relative, by the way. You don't want to draw too much attention to yourself and what you're doing and how you're doing it either, because you don't want anyone interrupting what you're in the process of creating. And that can be all good too. Like, for example, we want electric vehicles on the road. We want rockets going to the moon and to Mars. We want advances in technology. We've been caught in this bubble of time for so long where we've had so many great ideas about how the world can be better, and they've been suppressed or oppressed or squashed or hidden or killed before they can even get going, all to maintain the status quo of the structures that were being built by other people who had built those structures. And even though those structures may be really detrimental to our future, it's like we get caught in this lie that we have to keep perpetuating because the truth becomes too hard to handle, too much to bear if we wake up to it too quickly and without preparation. But that's a whole new argument anyway. So let's go back to what we're trying to do here. Is we're trying to start to learn about all these subtle levels of life, what they are scientifically, esoterically, magically, spiritually, imaginatively, all these things we need to at least look at and acknowledge. A bit like during the Cold War, when if you thought the other side might be doing something, you had to do it too, just in case they got the edge and came out with some new thing that would be the game changer and put them in control of your future. So that too is a third dimensional way of thinking. And when we move up to the fourth and beyond, we connect with the heart. The energy goes from the heart, it starts to expand out into your field massively, and then it goes way up and out to the top centers. And each time you break through to a new center of energy inside yourself, you start to tap into these more subtle levels of reality. And each energy center is this nexus where that frequency of energy is allowed to come in to the body, do what it does, reorganize it, reconfigure things, and start to send that new signal out into the field, which starts to reshape your reality. Okay? And everyone, when they get into this, it's a bit like martial arts. Like, you get in, you want to be a black belt, you want to be at the top. And that's a good goal to have. Like, spiritually, you want to have all your centers open, and you want to be able to tap into all these levels and to be able to have access to all these things, which is really good, right? But it's like that old saying, with great power comes great responsibility, and you need to be prepared and ready to take on that responsibility. Because the downside is your life can start to change so much so quickly, and you can be totally unprepared by it. Hey, Marley, easy girl. that things can get out of hand really quickly, and you might not have the skill to correct things. To give you an illustration, it's a bit like the Sorcerer's Apprentice in Disney, where he takes the wizard's hat and starts to get those buckets working for him to get the water coming through, and he can't stop it. It gets out of control and then starts to flood, and he's way beyond his skill level about how to put Pandora back in the box, basically, and it takes the wizard to come back. Marley. It takes the wizard to come back and dissolve the spell. So when you're getting into this kind of practice, I guess it's like training a dog, right? You want her, in my case it's Marley, you want her to be up to speed and well trained and listen and do all the commands and stuff like that. But at the same time, like, you just got to see the effects of, you want the spontaneity to still be there. You want the unique personality to come through. You want the spark, the essence of the spirit to shine through as well. You want the voice to remain. You don't want to silence the voice, right? And you want to do it in a way where it's pleasurable and it's fun, and you're enjoying the process, not just getting to the... So it's kind of like, you only want to move up the levels as fast as you're ready to do. And until you're ready to move up the levels, you stay where you're at, and you master where you're at, and enjoy all the little tricks and hacks and tips and things you're going to learn in that level. Because when you eventually get all the way up to the higher centers, let's say, or the higher frequency, or the mastery levels, then you're going to want to have all those basics mastered at all the other levels below. You don't want to get there and have to play catch up. All right, because once you get into the black belt level, for example, there's people that have been there a long time, and they've practiced a lot of things, and they've got a lot of experience, and if you don't have your basics down pat, then you're at a disadvantage when going up against those higher levels, let's say. And in this, although you want to be able to surrender to the higher self, you still want to be the cause of the effects in your life as much as possible, so that you can have a level of predictability and repeatability for certain things that you manifest and you create. So for example, if you're going to, okay, let's take a simple example that everybody wants. I want to be a millionaire. I want to be a millionaire. People say, I want to be rich. I want to have money. Like, okay, that's fine. No problem. There are millions of millionaires. There are millions of rich people in the world. There's lots of people who are really affluent and have all sorts of things that you probably want, and maybe things that you want that they don't have that are still available for you to have. And everyone can have what they want, but you want to be in a position where you're going to enjoy the process of getting there, because you don't want to be like that scene in, Miami Vice, where the guy's driving the Bentley and he's wearing the white ostrich leather shoes or whatever they are, and he's got the gold chain, and he walks out in the street in front of a truck because it's just the pressure of that life is so great. The risk to safety is so high, and blah, blah, blah. You want to be in a position where you're enjoying how you get there. When you get there, it's sustainable. When you get there, you're calm, you're relaxed. It's not like it's going anywhere. You don't have to scurry around and run around trying to maintain this reality, because if you don't, the house of cards comes crashing down. You're not faking it till you make it, basically. And you're not taking risks that are beyond your skill level, where you get into that sorcerer's apprentice mode where you can't recover and things get out of hand, and all of a sudden the demons come out of the closet, come and get you. So this is just framing, so get you framed right, understand what you're getting into. And we go a deeper level again, and then we talk about what we're focusing on here is what is actually the potential of a human being once survival is handled and it's out of the way. Once you have made enough money to not be in a position where you're wondering how you're going to keep a roof over your head, or how you're going to keep feeding yourself or your family, or you have an income stream coming in that handles all that. Perhaps you have some investments or some savings, so it gives you a good 6 months to a year of having to, before you have to go back to working, for example, to get yourself, before you slide back into survival to get back out again thing. Or perhaps you get into a position where, you've made it and you can pretty much sustain your lifestyle indefinitely and not ever have to work, right? Actively. Maybe you just do little things here and there to keep things humming along nicely. Or maybe you're just in a position where you don't have to do any of that ever again, and because you've got more than enough to keep you out of survival and in a thriving mode for the rest of your life, right? On average. So when we have that sorted out, and when we have our relationships sorted out, because maybe we have an emotional intelligence that we've cultivated over time, where we don't fly off the handle at stupid things, and we don't get triggered by things, or if we do, we take responsibility and we own it and we start to work with those emotions, and we're able to really connect with people on a deeper layer beyond our own wants and desires, beyond trying to just get our needs met. We have our needs met, and now we're connecting with people in a way where we're actually seeing them for who they are and loving them for who they are and where they're at in life, and not trying to change them, just giving them enough time and support to be who they are and make the changes how they see fit, when and where they want to, in their own time, in their own way. Maybe we've got our health sorted out. We might not be the Calvin Klein supermodel with six-pack abs and a chiseled jawline, but maybe from a male perspective, but maybe we're really healthy, and maybe we're out of those danger zones from in our age group to, if you keep doing this, then you're likely to have this outcome. It's maybe we're out of all those red zones completely. Maybe our health's in the black, and we don't have to do a whole lot to maintain our health and to be in a healthy state. Our habits are good. We're exercising. We're eating really well. Most of the time, we're indulging enough to keep it interesting and get the right endorphins going through our body. And we're in good habits, and we have good connections to healthy habits, and we have an active life and all that sort of stuff. So when that's all sorted out, we have in a position where it's inevitable that we will sort those things out, because we're setting up the foundations and doing the practices and building the habits to have that as our way of being, our new normal, so to speak. Then from there, we go into what I call thrival, right? We get out of survival and we get into thriving, and we get into living life. And so what is that? Most people don't even know what that is. We're so bombarded by all these things to keep us in a survival mode that we can't even access that part of the game. And part of that's by design, I'm sure, to keep people suppressed and keep them down and whatever else. But maybe that's just the baseline that you have to get through to have the skills to be able to really thrive and do it properly. So everything you're learning in survival mode is things that are going to make you aware of how not to slide back when you finally break through. Because when you finally get out of survival for the first time, it's like getting out of jail. You're like, I'm never going back. I'm never going back. And there's the fear of going back can zap you back, and the pressures of and the addictions to having those emotional hits met. If you don't have other avenues for that when you get into thriving, then it's very easy to slide back. So we don't want to do that. We want to gain momentum and get into survival mode and stay there and expand that and grow that and get so much momentum that it's like an airliner in the sky. You're at cruising altitude, or you're in the rocket, you're out in space, and you're in orbit now. There's little to no effort to maintain that altitude, that height, that frequency. Okay, so when you're there, then what happens? Then the properties of your reality start to shift and change. The rules of what's possible starts to shift and change. And how your internal representations work begin to shift and change. And most likely you'll be upgrading. So you'll start to see things differently. You'll start to look at time on different scales. You'll start to look at different actions and their consequences rippling out, and see what actions are of more value than others. You will start to increase the quality of everything that you start to do, the things you think about, the emotions you feel, the things you say, the actions you take. It's a bit like in the context of health. Once you get going, you start to eat better and make better choices, but then once you make better choices, then you're looking at the better quality of each of those choices, right? So you go from getting your basic apples, which are from the supermarket, to maybe you go to the fruit and veg grocer who gets them from the guy who grows apples at the orchard, and he's an apple specialist. He's a master apple grower, and these apples, like when you bite into them, they're not just apples. They're like these little units of magical energy that when you eat them, your body just beams. And so you do that with apples and oranges and bananas, right down to the quality of water you drink and the sleep you have, and basically everything. You're customizing your life from the micro detail to the macro mainframe, and you're making everything as in alignment as you possibly can with all the knowledge and skill level that you have. And along the way, with your experience, you're going to pick up new knowledge and new skill levels, and that's going to alter and change and increase the quality of everything in your life as well. And the beautiful byproduct of this is that the people in your immediate surroundings, the actual energy in the space around you, begins to vibrate and change its frequency to match your frequency. And so you become this node in the network, so to speak, where your loved ones, your friends, your family, your co-workers, your business partners, the very energy in the space around you starts to change its frequency, okay? And you have this kind of like cascading effect, this exponential effect over time, where the better quality of your choices and your energy, your outcomes, your actions, the better quality of your energy, okay? It's this self-fulfilling perpetual prophecy where you just keep leveling up basically over time, even if it's micro adjustments. And in my opinion, these quantum leaps are amazing and they're a lot of fun sometimes, where you get this huge change going on. Wow, my life's amazing. I just leapt from level 2 to level 7, and it's all exciting because you've got access to all these new functions and new options and new potentials that you knew were there, but you couldn't quite see them and you didn't know how to activate them and all that sort of stuff. But once you've been doing this for a while, because those jumps can get tiring, because each time you jump, there's time on the tools to get used to everything new. You got to unpack everything, you get sort everything out. There's this example of someone in the group. She's done some inner change work and she's moving through her traumas, and everybody's got them, right? Everybody's got a trauma somewhere, or has been traumatized by witnessing or hearing about someone who has trauma. Okay, so she's let go of this trauma, and within a week of this trauma energy releasing and moving out of her body, what's been waiting on the edge of her energy field, which is a new home, a peaceful, safe, secure home, rushes in and starts reorganizing her energy, and within a couple of weeks she's in a new house. And at first it's like, yay, I'm here, look at my sunset, look at my porch, look at my cute little house, look at my grassy field, this is paradise, right? And for her it is, and it looks beautiful. And then a week later it's, oh, there's a mouse in the house, there's something, the plumbing's not quite right, I need to fix that. And it's, oh, okay, so this is the Sorcerer's Apprentice. You've got this new reality now, okay, and now you have to adjust to it, and you naturally are going to swing back and, oh, what have I got myself into? I had this great life, was easier back then. Not that it was easier or it was better. It wasn't actually. It wasn't better, it wasn't easier. It was just familiar, and you had it all down pat and sorted out. But this makes you do things differently. You're having to adjust and change your habits and do things in a different way. And this is all like, at the moment, none of it's unconscious. It's all conscious all the time. You have to stay focused all the time. And so that's going to interrupt and disturb your energy in the ways you want it to. But you're going to have this like teething process, growing pains, let's call them. And once you've been through this cycle many times, what you start to look for is this nice, easy progression. And it goes up and it goes down a bit, but it's not like this. It's more like, oh, okay, it's a bit easier to deal with. It's a bit more, okay, I can deal with this. I'll get over that. And okay, come down a bit. We'll deal with the trough as well. But over time, it's always going up. You're growing like this rather than brrr.